Hey everyone, Donkey Storm here, and today we're going to do our final Shadowlands guide for Holy Priest and Mythic Plus. The goal of this guide is going to be to give you the quick start version of all the setup stuff like talents, covenants, conduits, legendaries, tier sets, and then spend some time on the gameplay itself and how you should be playing in dungeons. It's a pretty in-depth guide, so remember you can use the timestamps below to jump to whatever's most relevant to you. If you like the guide, please hit subscribe to see more from me in the future and to check me out when I go live doing keys and other fun WoW stuff right here on this channel on YouTube, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays. Alright, let's get into the guide. So I imagine a lot of people are going to be rolling Holy Priest for Shadowlands Season 4. There's every reason to think that like Season 3, Holy's going to be cream of the crop of healers. Holy Priest's strengths are its raw healing output, high damage potential, but its weaknesses are lack of damage reduction for others and weak personal defensives. However, in this patch, the positives outweigh the negatives by a pretty wide margin, and Holy's sitting in a fantastic spot as far as Mythic Plus is concerned. Okay, so to understand the build, you're going to want to know that everything we do in this build is pretty much going to be in order to empower our heal spell and our holy words. There's a ton of synergy throughout the build, and I'll get into exactly how it works as we go through all the different pieces. But let's start with the legendaries. So we're obviously going to be wearing Unity for our Covenant ability, but on top of that, your legendary you want to select is Flash Concentration. So what this does, each time you cast a flash heal, your heal spell has its casting time reduced by 0.2 of a second, and healing is increased by 3% for 20 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. So every time you cast flash heal, you'll see I'm tracking it on a weakaura here. Make sure you do that too. I'll link mine in the description. Every time you cast flash heal, you get a stack of this buff, and it really makes your heal spell fast and powerful. So a big part of Holy Priest gameplay is just keeping this buff up at all times. So once it drops to maybe 3 seconds, depending on your haste levels, or if you have an instant cast proc here like I do, you just refresh the buff. And you try to keep that up as close to 100% as possible. Alright, so these are the talents you're going to want to run in about 99% of situations. There's very little deviation in the Holy Priest talent tree, so if you don't like swapping talents around, it's a good class for you. We're going to take Trail of Light on the first row, which basically makes it so every time you heal one ally, the previous person that you healed also gets some healing. This really adds up over time to a lot of healing over the course of a dungeon. Angelic Feather for some sorely needed movement speed. Guardian Angel is going to make it so that your Guardian Spirit can be cast on someone, and if it doesn't proc, so if it doesn't save them from death, you get it back on a 1-minute cooldown, which is awesome. Allows you to throw this out very liberally. Level 35 is the only place you're going to have any real leeway. Censure is sort of the default pick. It's going to make your Holy Word Chastise also stun. So range stun is really nice to have. There are some weeks where you might want to take Shining Force, like Sanguine, things like that. So it's kind of a niche pick, but sometimes it is a better choice. Surge of Light gives you instant cast flash heal procs, which is great for keeping up your flash concentration stacks. Divine Star is just a neat little DPS ability. You can just kind of throw it out on cooldown. And Apotheosis is a really nice healing throughput cooldown that you can use every 2 minutes. That really synergizes with all the other pieces of this build really well. So use this, you can't go wrong. Alright, so let's talk 2-set and 4-set. So the 2-piece bonus for Holy is going to give you a buff called Divine Conversation every time you use a Holy Word spell. At 2-set, what this is going to do is make it so that the next Holy Word affecting spell you cast, so Flash Heal, Smite, regular heal especially, is going to reduce the cooldown of your Holy Words by 15 seconds. So if I cast a Serenity, you can see it goes on a 60-second cooldown. Now let's use a flash heal. All the way down to 35. So big cooldown reduction there. Then at 4-set, on top of that, it will also increase the effectiveness of that heal. So for example, I use another holy word, I use Sanctify. And then I cast a heal spell. This heal is going to heal for a ton. This is basically going to top people off. This is very potent. So you're going to want to get your hands on the 4-set as soon as possible. Okay, so for Covenants, if you're just looking for best in slot Covenant, you're going to want to go Kyrian. It provides the most damage. The Kyrian ability, Boon of the Ascended, is really awesome. And then for Soulbind, you're going to go Mechanicos. Before I get into that, though, it is important to note all the Holy Priest Covenants are playable. They're viable. They're not like super bad. So if you want to flex into another Covenant or you just don't like Kyrian, I mean, unless you're pushing like cutting edge keys, which most people are not, pick whatever you like. But if you just want to know what's good, Kyrian's good. You're also going to want to go with the Mechanicos Soulbind. It provides a lot of passive damage, which is something we like. And then as far as the conduits to use, we're going to take 2 potencies, and we're going to go down the center. So we're going to head over to the left. We can use our Covenant ability Conduit, which is going to increase our boon damage. Then we're going to go down the center, like I said. So we're going to actually avoid a potency conduit in favor of another endurance conduit and Hammerogenesis for some more haste. The reason is that beyond these 2 potency conduits, the holy potencies are not that great. So we're going to use Courageous Ascension, and then we're also going to use Resonant Words. Now, what this one does is casting a Holy Word spell increases the healing of your next heal or flash heal by X%, 83.6 at max level conduit. So that's on top of your flash concentration and on top of your foreset. So when you use a Holy Word, your next heal is going to be massive because of this. And then we're going to head over to the left and, of course, take Anima Accelerator down at the bottom for some cooldown reduction on our boon. So we are going with 3 endurance conduits here. The reason is Holy's pretty squishy. So whatever survivability we can get, we're going to take it. So we're going to take Anima Sphere for some passive healing. We're going to take Light's Inspiration for a little bit of extra healing on our Desperate Prayer. We're going to take Translucent Image, which is awesome. It turns your Fade into a damage reduction, and that's on a 30-second cooldown. So you should be using Fade pretty much whenever you're taking damage, and we'll get more into that later. So to summarize, Kyrian, Mechanicos, Courageous Ascension, and Resonant Words. Okay, so finally stats. You're going to want to lean toward Haste Verse. Haste is really nice to just pump those heal spells out, since that's the majority of what you're going to be casting, get them out faster. Verse is really nice because of the added damage reduction that it gives you. At really high keys, Holy is very squishy, like I mentioned, and every little bit of damage reduction helps, and it does buff your healing up a little bit too. If you're looking for a third stat, I'd say Crit. Mastery's not necessarily bad, but it's a little bit more raid oriented, so I would stick to Haste and Verse. Okay, that's all the setup stuff, but how do you play the class? Well, basically, it's really simple healing class to play. You're going to keep your 5 stacks of flash concentration up all the time, or as close as you can. You're going to use Heal as your filler spell and just about your everything spell, even AoE single target. You're going to want to take advantage of Trail of Light by bouncing back and forth between different targets instead of just spamming one wherever possible. So like heal the rogue, heal the hunter, heal the tank, instead of just constantly healing one person up at a time. You'll get a lot of value out of this talent. Now, on top of heal and flash heal, you're going to use Holy Word Serenity as your bigger single target heal, and Holy Word Sanctify as more of an AoE heal. Even though these are on semi-long cooldowns at a minute, throw them out very liberally. Because of our tier set and our all the different synergies in our build, you can see these cooldowns come back super fast, so do not hold on to your Holy Words. You should be spending them a lot. And the last thing to remember is how buff your heal spell is after a Holy Word. So if you need to do a big piece of healing to your group, what you're going to want to do is cast a Holy Word, cast a heal. Cast another Holy Word, cast a heal. Cast another Holy Word, cast a heal. And those heals are going to be gigantic. And that's pretty much the way that we're going to heal on Holy Priest. We're going to weave in Holy Words and heals, Holy Words and heals, and we're going to have a ton of healing throughput. Okay, let's build on top of that our healing cooldowns. You basically have 2. You've got Guardian Spirit, which is a cheat death. If you have it on someone and they die, they'll instantly go back to 40% health. It also increases the healing they take while it's on them by 60%. So if somebody's going to die or somebody's going to need a lot of healing, you're going to throw this buff on them. If it procs and saves someone from death, it goes on a 3-minute cooldown, but totally worth it. You save someone from death. If it doesn't proc, it only goes on a 1-minute cooldown thanks to our Guardian Angel talent, which means you should be throwing this out very liberally. Anytime someone's going to need a lot of healing, throw it on the tank at the beginning of a scary pull, things like that. In addition to that, we've got Apotheosis on a 2-minute cooldown. Now this one's pretty cool. So we can do that Holy Word heal weaving that I talked about before. Let's just get our stacks up real quick. And we can use this on top of that. So we could do it like this. A Holy Word, a big heal. A Holy Word, a big heal. A Holy Word, a big heal. And then when those are all on cooldown, we use Apotheosis. We get them all back. Holy Word, big heal. Holy Word, big heal. Look how fast they're coming back now, because Apotheosis resets the cooldown on your Holy Words and then gives you a 300% CDR on top of them. So you're going to be able to just pump Holy Words and heals while Apotheosis is up. It's only on a 2-minute cooldown. Don't forget to use it. Alright, let's talk about damage. Healers love talking about damage these days. The number 1 damage ability that you have is your Boon of the Ascended. A great time to use this is just the beginning of a pull. So basically you're going to cast Boon. It's going to turn whatever your Boon button is into Ascended Nova, and whatever your Smite button is into Ascended Blast. You want to prioritize Blast over Nova, and the rhythm you're going to kind of get into is Blast, Nova, Nova, Blast, Nova, Nova. So I'm going to cast Boon, Blast right away, 2 Novas, Nova, Nova, Blast, Nova, Nova, Blast, Nova, Nova, Blast, Nova, Nova, Blast, and then that's everything. So the more enemies you hit, obviously the more damage you're going to do, but also the more cooldown reduction you're going to get toward your next boon. So you can see my boon's already on a 1-minute cooldown right now. So throw this out there. Don't sit on it. It's free damage, does some healing too. Really good ability. Okay, on top of that, the next things I would prioritize for damage would be Divine Star. Just toss it out on cooldown. You can aim it best you can. Just use it. Holy Fire on cooldown too. And if you do those 3 things, you're going to be in really good shape, honestly, in the damage department. Now, if you're finding yourself with even more time to DPS on top of that, you can throw out Shadow Word Pains on everything. You can just smite as filler. And then if things get low, you could throw Shadow Word Death on them too. So that's pretty much the Holy Priest damage rotation, or whatever priority list, whatever you want to call it. I would say level 1 is just kind of using Boon, Divine Star, and Holy Fire, and then if you find yourself with extra time on top of that, you could throw in Shadow Word Pain, Shadow Word Death, and Smite. Okay, so for utility spells, maybe your biggest one is Power Infusion. So this is a haste buff that you want to put on a DPS. If you track DPS cooldowns, you could try and line it up with something like a Fire Mage Combustion. If you're not that advanced and you just want to use it, just throw it on whoever's doing the most DPS on cooldown, and that's really not a bad way to go about it. Just make sure that you're using it. Your DPS will really appreciate it, and it doesn't show up on your DPS meter, but it does contribute quite a bit. Another good one to use, Mass Dispel, of course. So Mass Dispel is super awesome on certain bosses like Koltharok and Theater of Pain when he puts the 2 debuffs out. I think you can get like every other one completely wiped out with Mass Dispel. Great on the last boss of Spires of Ascension, gets that nasty debuff off after the second phase. Anytime you've got a place to use this, Bursting comes to mind. Make sure you're using it. It's got a ton of value in some situations. In the way of CC, you've got Psychic Scream. Don't forget to use it. So you can run into a group in melee, Psychic Scream it to interrupt abilities like Fist Sticks, for example. I don't see a lot of priests doing that, and it is easy to forget, but it's a very helpful maneuver to help your group out with some CC. And on top of that, you've got your holy word, Chastise. You can throw this as a DPS ability. You can use it as a disrupt, as an interrupt. Do remember that this can also contribute to your foresight and your healing. So you'll kind of get a feel as to when you want to use this for healing or when you want to use this as a disrupt. But do make sure you're using it. It is a really nice ability. We've got, I could have listed this as a healing cooldown, but I don't really think of it that way. Divine Hymn. So it is a big channeled heal. Which can make it hard to find a great use for in Mythic Plus. But the part that people forget about of this is that it does a healing increase buff. So if I channel this fully, I get this the Divine Hymn. I increase the healing my whole group takes by 20% for 15 seconds. So the way you want to use this is kind of precast it. If you know there's going to be a big group damage coming out, cast this first to get that 20% healing buff on your group, and then you can do your big healing during that time to easily top people off. Symbol of Hope is a pretty cool utility spell that you should also not forget to use. So it will regenerate 15% of your missing mana, which isn't that great. So you're only getting 15% mana back from this if you're at like literally 0 mana. But the cool part about it is it also recovers 60 seconds of a major defensive cooldown for everyone. So it's awesome for tanks. It's awesome for DPS players that actually use their defensive abilities. If you're not tracking defensive abilities on your UI, just throw it out on cooldown when you've got a second. If you are, try and line it up with the tank, and they can really do some cool stuff when they get those defensives back really quickly. On top of that, you've got Shackle Undead. This is just kind of your CC for undead things. It's got its uses, like the mages and Necrotic Wake come to mind. So make sure you have it on your bars. Be ready to cast it when the time is right. And I think that's going to pretty much do it for our utility spell. Okay, so last but not least, let's go over defensive. So I've mentioned a few times that Holy Priest is a squishy class. As you start to push higher keys, you will sometimes find yourself just kind of dead and wondering what the hell happened. To avoid that situation, use Fade as often as you can. It's a 30-second cooldown with your Conduit that we took. It's also a damage reduction. So pretty much anytime you're going to take damage, I'd Fade. It's a good way to prevent yourself from dying. You've also got Desperate Prayer, which is going to increase your max health by 20% and then also heal you for that amount. And with the Conduit we chose again, it's going to heal you a little bit over time as well. This one's also a minute and a half. Use these very liberally. And then also don't forget, you can Guardian Spirit yourself. So a little bit more advanced thing you can do with Guardian Spirit is if your health is getting low, you can throw this on yourself and basically die on purpose in order to heal other people and not worry about yourself. Obviously, you can use it as your own sort of personal cheat death. So don't forget about Guardian Spiriting yourself. When I learned to do that a little bit more, it really helped me out. Alright, I hope you guys found this Holy Priest guide helpful. If you feel like I forgot anything or have any comments, go ahead and leave them in the comments section down below. And if you want to see Holy Priest in action, check out my live stream Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays, 9 o'clock Pacific. Going to be doing Holy Priest as a main in Season 4. I'll see you there, and I'll catch you in the next video.